else came here for an M1 iMac review? I did too. Now let me show you guys what I gotta do to do this for you guys, because this is the review table. You see no iMac, right? Because I moved the iMac into my ultimate setup. What's the ultimate setup, CJ? You guys are gonna find out later. But look, I gotta unplug this iMac from all of this goodness over here and move it over there just to talk to you guys about it. So you better smash that like button and appreciate this video. Also, I'm gonna help you guys make the right decision on how to pick your iMac and all of the good things about this M1 iMac. Let's get into the video. Oh, let's, do I got the chime sound on? What is up, YouTube? Today we're gonna talk about my 1 week experience with this here iMac 24-inch with the M1 chip, baby. I'm excited to talk about this thing. I got all of the beauties and pluses and deliverables that come with this, also as well as my pet peeves and somewhat of some shortcomings with this iMac 24-inch. Also, I'll talk about configuration and things like that, but overall my user experience. What has it been like? What is it like to own an M1 iMac 24-inch, and what should you buy? And should you get the 24-inch or should you look at something else? Let's talk about it. I just did my whole password on the thing. Oh, we gotta black that up. All right, so Apple has done it yet again. Dropped another M1 machine. Let me move a lot of this stuff that's up here on this display because it's typically things that are ran on my multiple display. So we're gonna talk about like my multiple setups that I've been using with the M1 iMac 24-inch and how it's fell into my workflow thus far. Okay, so I'm about to set up the iPad M1 12.9-inch as my second display. I love doing it that way. Boom, now we got both displays on and we're set up. We got macOS running on an iPad, but not by itself. All right, let's get into the video. First thing we're gonna talk about is the design of this iMac 24-inch and how I feel about it, how has it fell into my workflow and so forth. Number one, the bezels are not an issue. Well, somewhat. I'll talk about it when I talk about my pet peeves in a second. Matter of fact, let's get into the pet peeves. Let's talk about the things with this iMac that haven't been so good for me. Let's get that out the way, and then we're gonna talk about the lovely things and the great things and what the user experience has been. So, pet peeve number one, the size of the display. Now, there's nothing wrong with a 24-inch display, and I understand why Apple made it 24 inches, and it's actually an improvement from the 21.5-inch. This is made to fit in most workspaces, living rooms, and things like that. So it's not meant to be a huge staple. It's meant to blend in and fall into the space. You know, a lot of people are gonna probably be getting these for doctor offices, schools, things like that. So 24-inch display, especially once you add the bezel and the chin and the size of this whole thing, makes sense. Like my second monitor that I connect this to in my ultimate setup, you guys, there's an ultimate and there's a minimal setup that I have. The minimal setup is this iPad Pro in front of this, like this. These two right here. The ultimate is a lot more, but I have a 34-inch LG 5K 2K display that I use on the side of this, and that's what I'm used to, using 34 inches of display. So going from 34 inches down to 24 inches, that's a 10-inch shrinkage, and yeah. So for me personally, that's why I said some of these are pet peeves and some of these might be caveats. I prefer a bigger display, but the 24 inch is more than enough, especially when you use it like this. After removing it from the ultimate setup, where it's next to a bigger display, it feels massive. It feels a lot more, you know, yeah, that stuff. All right, so my second pet peeve I wanna talk about, and this is just a personal pet peeve, is the max amount of RAM is only 16 gigabytes. Now this is the first version of the M1. There's gonna be a higher, more, you know, performance-driven M1 is gonna have higher RAM capacity and GPU cores and things like that. Now, 16 gigabytes of RAM with this M1 has been, we'll talk about that later. Typical person, you probably don't even need more than 16. 16 is actually really good with the M1. Now, the next thing that I wanna talk about, now this is actually something where the M1 iMac does have a shortcoming, and that's the amount of ports. It's a lack of ports. Now, if you get the base model, you only get 2 Thunderbolt ports. That's very slim and minimal. If you get the higher end, like I have right here, you get 4 ports, 2 Thunderbolt and then 2 USB-C. That's still minimal because I have an iMac Pro. On my iMac Pro, I have I think 4 USB-Cs and 4 USB-As, SD card reader, and all of that stuff in the back. It's a much more robust I/O on the rear. Now, when you get into the M1, I think there's limitations. This first iteration of the M1, ports have been the lack of. We've only seen 2 Thunderbolt on every M1 machine, from the Mac Mini to the MacBook Pro to the MacBook Air to the iMac 24-inch. And then luckily on this one, we got 2 more USB-Cs. On the Mac Mini, you get 2 USB-As. At the end of the day, ports are limited on the first generation M1. Now, what I'm gonna bring up in my pet peeve, it might sound contradictory to what I talk about when I talk about the actual design of this thing, but the bezel and the chin, it's not an issue. It's an iMac. That's the design. These white bezels, you see beyond them. Here's where it became an issue or a pet peeve for me. When I put it in my Ultimate setup, when I put it next to that LG Ultra Wide, and I'm going from the LG Ultra Wide and I'm coming over, the problem is this display size, you really start to see what it really is, because my Ultra Wide probably takes up about this much of it, but it's all display. It's like nearly bezel-less. So when I'm dragging over, I come over and my eyes are like, wait, what the heck? Why isn't there display in this section, which is the chin? That's where I'm aiming at. And then even in the bezel area, you start to realize how big the chin is, how big the bezel is, and how little display you actually have. And I think a part of this design of the iMac with the chin, it makes it feel like you have a more bigger, robust computer and display than what you actually have. That's probably part of the reason why Apple didn't want to remove the chin, because if you take away the chin, then you really see how small this display is. Also, I think the bezel could use a reduction. All right, that's the end of my pet peeves. I'm gonna stop whining. Now let's talk about the things that I actually did like, and let's just talk about the overall review of this product right here. Now, the first thing we're gonna talk about is the design. Now, you guys know this thing causes a ripple effect. These colors are beautifully bold and masterful and wonderful, and it's a full selection to choose from. I chose the yellow because it has a lot of gold tint in it. The accessories have the gold. The stand part right here is very much gold, and the rear has a very deep, like, yellow gold. And then the front has a more creamy yellow, like kind of reminds me of the iPhone XS Max in gold, which I actually have, and how the rear is kind of creamy. Not quite the same, but close. So yes, it's yellow, but it's really more gold and golden yellow. You know what I mean? For all them players that was leaving those stupid comments in the comment section below, you don't have it in front of your face. And if you watch other reviewers, they're gonna tell you how much gold is in this thing. So yes, I was right by calling it gold. The look of this thing is phenomenal. The slimness, the sleekness, the lightness, the portability. I was able to move this out of my setup and bring it over here with little to no issue. And you gotta love that. So this design is actually really, really good. It fits into so many different situations and decor, but when you put it into a typical setup, a table, a desk against a wall or a window, you lose all of this beauty back here. So I wish some of this beauty from back here, from the back, was in some of the front, you know? But I get it, I understand why it is the way that it is. For the design of this iMac, I actually like it. As I said, I have my few pet peeves with the bezel and the chin when it comes to putting this thing into a bigger build out with a external monitor. So I think this iMac is meant to be alone and used alone, probably with sidecar and the iPad Pro. This is more geared towards a minimal build than an illustrious ultimate setup. That's my personal opinion, and that's how I feel like it is intended to be used. Now let's talk about the display, 4.5K. Hey, all you gotta say is 4K for me. The fact that I can watch my 4K videos and your other creators' 4K videos in full resolution on this display is a plus. This display looks really good. It's really nice. The colors are very accurate. Color grading on this thing has been a breeze. It's just been really, really good. I love it. I appreciate this display. Watching content on it and everything. As I said, I'm gonna keep it a buck. You don't see the white bezels. You look beyond it. The display is nice. There is this little, like, edge. You see right from the white to the display, there's a miniature black like line. I don't know, it's probably like a millimeter or two. You know, it's quite interesting. It's not seamless from white to the display. There's that black line right there. Nevertheless, in everyday use, if you're not like OCD and you're not nitpicky, this thing is fine. And I don't notice this as much as I'm noticing it now because I'm being very critical as I'm looking at it. But I'm editing, I'm doing whatever, I'm browsing, blah, blah, blah. I'm just focused on whatever the content is. Okay, so you know what? Next, let's talk about the FaceTime camera. This is an improvement. We are in the age of working from home. This iMac 24-inch was geared towards those people working from home now. You know, they put the new FaceTime camera. It took people working from home in the pandemic to get Apple to give us a better FaceTime camera. Us tech gurus have been screaming and shouting at the top of our lungs for a better FaceTime camera, and we just now got it because there's a pandemic and everybody's doing Zoom calls and things like that. But nevertheless, we have finally gotten it. It looks a lot better, it's a lot clearer than previous, but you can tell that there's processing going on in the image. So it's not like the utmost perfect. But let's record real quick. You guys, what's up? Using the brand new FaceTime 1080p. You know what I'm saying? This thing is looking crispier than crispy in comparison to the 720 trash that we've had in the past. So I'm thankful in that sense. All right, that's the end of this. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is performance. That's what the big frenzy is about with the M1. Efficiency and performance in combination. And that's what it does best. It gives you a lot with a little in a nice efficient package. Yeah. So basically at the end of the day, if you're gonna be doing regular web browsing, regular computer stuff, nothing high end, no gaming, nothing crazy, then you can probably get away with the M1 with the 8 gigabytes of RAM. But what did I opt in for? I got 16 gigabytes of RAM because on my 8 gigabyte M1 Mac Mini build, I reached bottlenecks because I'm a creator. So I went with 16 gigabytes of RAM on this iMac, and I will tell you this, it's a world of a difference. I do a lot of high-end 4K video editing, multiple streams of 4K. I usually have 3 angles. As you can see, I got you, and this one in 4K. Now, if you are any type of video editor, photo creator, raw photo editor, gamer, and all of that kind of stuff, and you want to opt into this machine, you definitely want to opt in with 16 gigabytes of RAM, period, no questions. Listen to your boy. I've been able to edit all of my footage, all of my videos that I've been doing recently have been edited on this iMac machine, and it's been a breeze and a pleasant treat to use. Absolutely love it. I appreciate it. I'm chilling. I'm feeling good about this thing. Now, if you all into geek bitch and all that stuff, you know what I mean? Come on, man, it's the M1. You guys seen it. It does what the M1 do. It outperforms Intel back to back to back. And this is a nice design, a nice build, a nice computer. All right, let's talk about it. User experience. That's what matters most. We can talk all this techie jargon and read all these tech specs, which all that stuff doesn't matter because that's on paper. What matters is when I plug in that power cable, I turn on this computer, I get on my keyboard, how does it perform? Now, I'm pretty sure you guys can tell from my enthusiasm that this has been a great computer. The M1s are great. You guys have heard it over and over again from every creator. We all appreciate Apple's new M1 architecture, SoC, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying, man, all that technical jargon. At the end of the day, this is a great machine. I have not found much bottlenecks. Now, I did have one time where I got the fans to kick on and you can hear them, but it's not as loud as the previous Intel machines would sound like a Tesla rocket getting ready to go into space and take us to Mars type of thing. At the end of the day, this machine is so much more efficient and power built than any Intel iMac from the past. And I'm a person who owns an iMac Pro, which was an extreme price tag in comparison to this. And I would choose this to edit on before I go to my Intel iMac Pro. That says a lot. There's a lot of people, you know, getting rid of their Intel-based high-end Pro machines in preparation for this new M1X and higher-end M1, and maybe even just the M1 with 16 gigabytes of RAM. So at the end of the day, what am I here to say? If you have your eyes on the brand new M1 iMac 24-inch, you will not be disappointed. Pick your configuration wisely. Even with the extra ports like I have, I'm using a Thunderbolt dock to be able to plug in all of the accessories and things that I have. Now, if your plug-in is minimal, you might be able to skate by, but I highly recommend the $14.99 version, which is in the middle. It's only gonna have 256 gigabytes of onboard storage, so you're gonna need external storage. I tell you guys every time I use these SanDisk Extreme Pros external SSDs, and now you can get the new generation since we have on the Thunderbolt ports, USB-C the new one, 4, whatever the heck. Anyways, it's super fast. But the older ones still work fine. I'm able to edit all of my 4K footage off of it just fine at those speeds. So pick what you want, configure it how it shall work for your workflow. But at the end of the day, I just want to tell you, with the M1, you will not be disappointed. Just as you haven't been disappointed with the M1 MacBook Air, the M1 MacBook Pro, or the M1 Mac Mini. Now, I will say this, the Mac Mini is a beast. It's a lot cheaper, but remember, that cheapness is because you don't have a display. So you have to purchase the display. But if you like bigger displays, I mean, you can get a Mac Mini with 16 gigabytes of RAM. They just added a new updated Mac Mini with I think they put 10 gigabit Ethernet or something on it or whatever. You can grab that bad boy with a nice big display, and you might be sitting around this. I don't know if you can get the same price point because displays are expensive. The display that I use is a $1,500 display. You can spend $1,500 to get everything all in one with the iMac 24-inch M1. Simple as that. Smash that like button if you like the video. Hit the subscribe button. Come back for more dope tech videos with me, you guys. Hey, listen, we got a journey to get on.
I put in work, you know I'm up to get it. Early bird gets the worm and the Yankee fitted. Like, whoa, bags under my eyes and you know, won't complain, I'm tired, I'm on go. For that grip, 10 toes till they swole. For that grip, 10 toes till they swole. Remember those days, those L's, I couldn't sleep right now. I get paid, vacay, I'm staying B-side. Breaking the blues over steak, I gotta eat right. You could be my peace sign.